Hey guys, Jason Sensational here. Today I have a deck guide for you guys on no other than Thresh Gnosis. It's the deck that got me to Masters this season. I believe in the last stretch I went 11-5 with this iteration of this deck, and it's just a very prevalent and strong deck that's kind of been, very popular in the ladder recently and also in the seasonals coming up to this patch. So a very strong deck that even though it got two nerfs with Caretaker and Atrocity, still continues to dominate the meta as well. So for any of you who are trying to get into this deck to learn how to play this deck, this is the video for you, and this is what you want to be doing. So without further ado, if you like the content that I make, please do consider leaving a like and a subscribe. It really helps me a lot. And let's just jump right into the guide. Okay, so first let's just take a look at the deck list that I have been using at my very last end of the climb. With a lot of these deck lists, they're mostly the very similar core, but you'll notice like a lot of different cards that might come in and out across different deck lists. And we'll talk a little bit more about some tech slots, the flex spots in this deck a little bit later as we go on. But this is the version of the deck that I have been liking as I play. Most notably different from most other decks that you've seen is we're on 3 Butchers and 2 Wing in the Waves, just to have that ability to proc like a Curse Keeper very early on to apply a lot of pressure. And notably, we are not running Spirit Leech, which is the 4-mana 4/1 kill an ally to draw 2 cards. Why are we doing this? In this current meta, Thresh Gnosis has to play a little bit more aggressively, just push early damage with the Bakai Reaper, get the Slays early on, and just try to close out games. In other metas, you can play a little bit slower with this deck and try to drag onto the late game, outgrind your opponent with some value. And in this particular meta, with decks like Aurelia Azir, you have to play a little bit faster, and so we've tuned this deck to match the speed that we want to play. And so we're running things like Wings in the Waves, cutting the Spirit Leech, and just making sure that we're playing very lean, very low to the ground, and try to win on turn 7 and 8. And so that's kind of how the deck is constructed. Otherwise, still a very normal Thresh Gnosis deck. You have the 3 of Bakai Reapers, you have the classic Curse Keeper Butchers, and Blinded Caretakers, as well as the 3 Merciless Hunter as a new card from this patch. And of course, Vile Feast, Glimpse, Black Spirit, and Atrocity as your common spells. So let's talk a little bit about the playstyle of this deck. For any of you who have played decks like Veihunder way back when, before even Targon was released, you'll notice that you have a very similar opening start with your Blighted Caretaker into Butcher combos. And your main goal here is to just play as a very tempo-oriented Shadow Isles aggro deck. You want to be applying pressure quickly while also trying to maximize your slay count. And how exactly do you want to do that? So beyond just playing for tempo, trying to hit your on-curve units, using your Butchers and your Wing in the Waves very aggressively to start scaling up your Bakai Reapers, you also want to be using your tools quite reactively. Tools like Vile Feast, Sharps, Glimpse Beyond, and Black Spear are very important tools because they can help you get slay procs, and you don't want these tools to be countered. So when you're wanting to glimpse one of your units, you want to try to make sure that you're using it as a reactive tool to, like, say, their Mystic Shot, versus proactively using Glimpse Beyond and having it denied. Because in this deck, you are very lean and you are very limited on card draw. So in very particular, you want to be careful with your Glimpse Beyond, but the same goes for Vile Feast. You want to make sure that you're getting as many slays as possible so that when you drop Gnosis, you're threatening the level up win condition. And because once Gnosis is leveled up, you get the spell shield, and then you can just Atrocity it to face. So it's very important that whenever you use your tools, you make sure you're trying to get your value out of them. I think another very important aspect of playing with Thresh Gnosis is just making sure you're keeping track of how many slays that you have. And this is important because when you eventually play Gnosis, you want to feel confident that when you play Gnosis, you're in a very comfortable position. And this is relevant when you're pulling Gnosis from Thresh and you don't have it in hand, and so you don't actually know like how big it is. You want to keep tracking of it, because when you chuck Gnosis out, and say it's like a 6/6 and your opponent has a 7/7 dragon to block it, this is suddenly very dangerous because you're now losing your Gnosis, which is probably one of your best win conditions out there. And so it's always very important to keep track of how many slays your Gnosis has, not only just to, make sure that it doesn't die when you play it out there, but it's also a good way of just making sure that you're playing to maximize your slay counts. And this becomes especially crucial when you're playing a Thresh Gnosis mirror, because the person with the bigger Gnosis is often just very far ahead. When you guys play Gnosis on turn 6, and say you're attacking on evens, now you can attack their Gnosis and they can't block with their Gnosis because your Gnosis just eats their Gnosis. So it's just very, very crucial to not only keep track of your slay count, but also play to maximize your slay count as well. How exactly does this deck kind of function, and how can you really maximize on your slay counts? I've kind of plotted out a few very common turns 1, 2, 3 plays that will play very aggressively and try to maximize your slay counts. So on turn 1, you have two main iterations. One is just playing Bakai Reaper, and the second iteration is playing Dune Keeper into Butcher. I think the strongest of these two is going to be the turn 1 Bakai Reaper, because on turn 2, that's probably when you can get like a slay with like a Butcher. But Fearsome right now in this meta is just very, very powerful as a keyword, especially when you have Merciless Hunter too vulnerable like a Fearsome blocker away. This Bakai Reaper can often just push even like 5, 6, 7, 10 damage in a game. So it's very crucial that you have this card on 1. But otherwise, if you don't, you can still have a very powerful 5 attack turn 1 play by going Dune Keeper into Butcher. And now this kind of table is just kind of meant to orient how you want to be thinking about your mulligans, because it is a very, I don't want to say combo, because that you just play on curve, but your cards synergize very well with each other, and you want to be thinking about how you want to plot out your turns 1, 2, 3 so that you're maximizing the damage output of your deck, as well as just applying a lot of pressure to your opponent. On turn 2, you have more cards now. You have access to Curse Keeper, Fading Icon, and this is where things get a little bit more interesting. If you have Curse Keeper on turn 2, then you might consider saving your Butcher to pair with it. And so you might ditch like the Dune Keeper and try to find like a Reaper, for example. But turn 2 is starting where you really hit like your power curves. If you're attacking on 2 and you play Curse Keeper in a Butcher, this is now presenting 7 damage on board, and some decks don't really deal with that very well. And now, of course, turn 3 is your power turn. You have the Merciless Hunter, you have the Blighted Caretaker. You want to set up Caretaker. If you're planning on playing Caretaker on turn 3, you want to set up like a target that you want to sacrifice on turn 2. So say you only have Curse Keeper on board, you want to make sure that you're able to sacrifice this Curse Keeper and not just openly attack with it so that your opponent blocks it and then you get the Death Rattle and you have nothing to, sacrifice, right? There's also a little bit more of a nuanced issue with this deck. But again, Merciless Hunter, very, very powerful. You can hook a unit, get a value trade, get a slay, or just push extra damage with the Fearsome keywords. And then, of course, when you get onto your further turns, you want to try to hit Thresh and Gnosis on curve. Usually playing that Thresh on 5, Gnosis on 6, usually leads up to a very, very powerful late game that a lot of decks can't really deal with very, very well. I also want to take a moment to talk about some of the possible cards that you might play in this deck, which ones seem good, which ones seems bad, and which ones would you slot around in different metas or maybe on a tournament deck. I think the first most contested opinions are on the control tools, your classic Withering Wails, your Box, your Vengeances. And this is kind of, I'm going to talk in a ladder perspective, and this is where things get a little bit interesting. Like, you can play one of Box, one of Wail, one of Vengeance to kind of just catch your opponent off guard. But I think in most cases, these will make your worst matchups worse and your better matchups a little bit better, right? So in a ladder sense, you don't really want to be baiting yourself into playing these cards. Rite of Negation is more of a meta-dependent option. If you're playing into a lot of TLC, you want this card in your deck. If you're playing against the mirror a lot, this card's not bad either, right? In your unit slots, we have cards like Spirit Leech, Bakai Sandspinner, and Wings of the Waves. Currently, my deck doesn't run Spirit Leech or Bakai Sandspinner. I think that they're just a little bit too slow for what this deck wants to be doing. You want to be maximizing your damage output on turns 1, 2, 3, and these cards can sometimes just break up your hands, and that's something you want to avoid at all costs. And that's also why I like running Wing and the Wave just as an extra Butcher tool. And it's also a bit flexible, right? You get a little bit of blocker option, you get a unit sacrifice option, and you get the unit sacrifice 3/3 option, right? So very flexible card that allows you to apply a lot more pressure because you are running 5 butchers theoretically. And of course, we have the bad cards that you should probably never run, and those being Sanctum Conservator, Rampaging Bakai, for very similar reasons why I'm not running cards like Spirit Leech and Bakai Sand Spinner. Now, there are like these very fringe cases where these can just like absolutely blow out the games, because they are like good, decent cards that provide lots of tempo swing, but if you're playing those on curve, they're still probably too slow and might break out your hands as well. From a matchup perspective, the matchup tables haven't really changed that much, and most of the decks in the meta are still relatively the same. You will have roughly a 50-50 against Demacia's Soul. It's pretty draw dependent, depends on how much heal cards they have, how many early game units they can really play out, and how fast you can kind of go just to mark them down. If they draw Hush, things like if they have Concerted Strikes, things like that. Very even matchup, definitely easily winnable on both sides depending on how the draws go, but that's kind of that. For some of the newer decks, we have the Aurelia decks. I think this is one of the more favorable matchups for Thresh Gnosis, simply because you have a lot of fearsome units that their deck can't really block, and if they're just chucking blades and sand soldiers into your units, you get to rack up your slay count, and by the time you play Gnosis on curve, often or not, you'll have like a 10-10 Gnosis for that matter. And then they'll also usually be at like 10 health, so you throw in the level up, and you throw in Atrocity Lethal, and usually it's relatively favored for you. Some of the harder matchups, and definitely some of the matchups that are a little bit more dependent on how fast of an aggro hand you draw, are decks like this Matron Cytherea deck, the Ashe Noxus deck, decks that can feel somewhat okay, but other times feel relatively unfavored depending on how fast of a start you get. And some other decks that might fall into this pile could be like the Mirror, obviously. It could be like and most aggro decks, just like discard aggro, even like the Azir Noxus deck. A lot of decks that kind of depend on how fast you can draw or like how many stabilizing cards that you can have. But overall, from a general point, this deck is very, very powerful against the meta, and has usually at least even to slightly favored matchups across the board. So finally, we come to the game showcase for you guys. I have 3 really good games for you guys. One against Thresh Gnosis, one against Azir Aurelia, and one against Overwhelm. So just to really show off the fundamentals here, how you want to be playing out your hands, how you really want to be using your cards, and how you want to be thinking about your curving out to try to get the most aggro hand as possible as you can. Without further ado, I'll leave you guys with the games. If you learned something new, feel free to drop a comment down below telling me if you liked the format, if you liked something I said. But I'll leave it there. Thank you guys for watching, and stick around for the games. Okay, the Mirror. Alright. Our deck's probably actually not good in the Mirror, huh? Because of the way we're built. We just have less card draw. So we have to rely on just killing them first. Which is actually kind of hard. Okay. We have Vile Feast, we have proc here, we drew Fading back. Looks like he has the good start. Okay, never mind. So he didn't have, whatchamacallit. We have no Spirit Leech, yeah, which makes our Mirror matchup slightly worse. I actually don't mind trading here for the 2-1. Okay. But I think, like, I can play this Mirror more skillfully. Now he has like really awkward attacks, right? Because he can't do this, otherwise he's just giving me free slays. I need to keep track of my slays, hold on. So he's killed 1, so... He's killed 1. He slayed once. We've slayed once. We've slain 3 times. We've slain 4 times to his 1. I'm liking where we're at. He could be on like some whale versions. He has a riot card back, true. He could also just have Thresh on 5, and we don't. But right now he has one Slay. We have Gnosis in hand, so we can just check. But he has one Slay. It's annoying. Vial Feast will kind of suck here. Okay, so he has 2 Slays. We have 5. We should have like Sudoku the Spider here, so that when he plays Thresh, he can't take a free trade. So, as I say that I'm gonna outskill my opponent, I make a bad play. Oh, okay. That's pretty okay as well. So he doesn't have Thresh, which makes me very happy. And we're so far ahead on Slays, I just jammed Gnosis on 6 and he really can't do anything. Like, we're really far ahead. I think we're gonna be very reactive with the glimpse. Like, ideally I want to glimpse this turn. So like ideally I want to glimpse this turn just so I don't float mana and be efficient. But the only way I lose is if this glimpse doesn't go off. And we're like so far ahead on Slays. He's only at, that's his 3rd Slay. So he's at a 1, 2, 3 Slays. And now we can go for it. Now he's tapped under. So he's had 4 Slays. We'll go up to 6. And then we can even Black Spear on top of it. So we're 2 Slays ahead, which is the only metric that's important here. Wow, 2nd Gnosis is insane. Four versus 6. 5 versus 6. I'm gonna Black Spear now because I can't next turn. And I'm gonna set up for Gnosis level. So we're 7 versus 5 here. If he plays Gnosis, like, he's not doing anything. The issue is I'm not leveling my Gnosis, which is a slight issue. Oh, he doesn't have Gnosis. Holy crap. Alright, I guess we win then. He could like glimpse block. But we already seen 2 glimpses. He could like Vile block. I got another glimpse. Okay. It's fine, because the moment he plays Gnosis, we just Siphoning Strike it. Like, our Gnosis is bigger than his by at least 1. Having any luck with Gnosis? Yeah, we're back to, we're at like 60 right now, D160. And this Caretaker should just be GG. He can't play Gnosis here because he gets bonked. And then, if he goes wide, we have Caretaker. So the instant he drops under 6 mana, we can just play Bakai into like Caretaker. Or can you just bonk this turn? Dethrone Mo as the NA Azarelia ladder champ? Sick, dude. I haven't played that deck at all, really. Should probably learn it. Or maybe it might get nerfed, so we can wait off on it, I guess. 12-2 with it today? Sick, dude. Yeah, I think he's in a really weird spot. Yep. He needs to play a Gnosis blocker. I think just slow rolling Gnosis here, and then I hit Siphoning Strike it. Don't next run both lead and follow and retreat. It's like retreat's insane. He still doesn't have a blocker, so I don't really care. Like if your opponent doesn't like play on retreat properly, you can like force them to commit like resources really poorly as well as just advancing your own like win condition. Then like lead and fall is insane too. Like no fight is also insane too. There's a lot of like really good cards that are just insane. Not quite sure if you can fit them all in. Oh yeah, no, like you're not like aiming to retreat drop it on two though. Retreat's insane when people go in for like the single combat and then they like realize that it's not actually working. Again, we'll just force him to have it. And we save up like bonk, right? So right now he needs one more fearsome blocker, and if he plays one, we just like bonk it. And then he has to have another. So we should just win here then. Oh, these guys aren't fearsome blockers anymore. They're not witch bonks. Alrighty. You know what time it is again. The fourth time tonight. Chovy. I've played this guy like so many times. We're both just stuck in diamond. Note to self, just mull more aggressively, lol. I'm not even gonna keep this. Okay. I was about to like smash something again. Last deck I lost to was Yasuo Malphite. Alright, sick. We have a good hand for once. Chovy classic for me too, yeah. Reaper's Nuts, yes. Am I trading for Sparring Student? Am I trading anything here? Wait, I can't even trade for Hmm. What is this hand? He's gonna pass this turn because he obviously can't attack. So what are we hoping for? We need to do this. Or we should probably just do this, hope for some top deck that saves us. Otherwise we just push a decent amount of damage over. Okay, I could have played right there, but being at 4 mana, I'd rather play it here. There are punishments for or for developing, but those usually involve Blade Dance cards unless it's another sand dude. In which case I can farm like a couple slays at the very least. We're at 20 health, which is the saving grace here. And if we draw Thresh here, we're in a decent spot. Right, so bad? It's like... It's like okay. Good turn 6, we're good. The issue is they're also at 20 health, right? The less issue is we can at least attack this turn with something. Like this. Once a trade Aurelia, I'm super happy. Drawing second Gnosis was not what I wanted. I wanted this to be a Thresh. Trading Sparring Sin too? Alright, sick. Pretty happy with the outcome here. It's likely he has another Aurelia based on that then. He's just playing Aurelia as a blocker. Okay, we have right Spear. That's fucking annoying. Gnosis is only at 7. It's 8 now, I guess. Thresh is playable. We'll kill this. If this gets notified, we just challenge it next turn, I suppose. I'd be curious to know what his hand's on if he's trading down so aggressively. Sure. So it's fine, he doesn't get to use his Flawless Duet here. And he has to pay 5 mana to play this again. He might even be forced into... What? Why though? Excuse me? Homecoming setup? Oh, I see. Right, yeah, that's a pretty good card. Hmm. He'd homecoming this way. So he spends his turn replaying this, I replay this, and we're in the same spot. And I have a Thresh that's gonna level, so I feel pretty okay here. This is a good draw. This like turbo levels my Thresh. And him playing this without Marshall on board is just like significantly worse. And if he plays this, he can't stop my Gnosis from leveling, and then I get bonk, and then I just win, right? I cannot prevent that. So we'll take a little bit of damage here, I guess. But if he wants to attack, he's feeding my Thresh at least by 1. That's annoying. He still has no good attack, right? Is there a reason to play Dunekeeper here? He attacks here, he gets thing here. I block with Thresh there, block there. Gamekeeper doesn't add any more blocks. He's not going to attack with Azir. He doesn't attack at all. I cannot level Thresh, and he can't really Blade Dance beforehand. The only thing I'm worried about is a second Homecoming here, so I'm going to keep 6 mana up just to replay Gnosis. I keep forgetting Homecoming's the card. I guess there's a punish in the sense that he could buff his Greenglade duo and make it threaten like a trade, which would have been sort of bad. Yep. Unbelievable. Alright, that's 2 Homecomings down. That's smart. Alright, he develops, we have Siphoning Strike. He attacks, we level Gnosis, we have Siphoning Strike. We lose to 3rd Homecoming. Is there some like weird syncopate lethal? I have to siphon with Thresh or something? I'm not doing that. What? As long as I don't die from the attack here, and I keep 6 mana up, I feel like I'm fine. Rise, alright, got it. So his last card's potentially a syncopate. So we just need to make sure we block everything. If he's not attacking with the Azir, then it's not syncopate and he can't kill us. Okay. Well, I guess it still could be syncopate. I guess he doesn't know that. Alright, so it's probably a syncopate, right? But even then, you can't kill us. Right? We take 7 plus... Yeah, we only take 7 at most. Alright. Looks like we win, hopefully. We do need to block this. Alright, sick. Now we play Siphoning Strike. We kill his dude. And then we open attack for lethal. What a grind. Alright, just draw better. Smile. Michael, please. Caretaker's kind of bad. He's already Shen emoting me. Oh my god. We're unfavored? Yeah, I would say so as well. Alrighty. Butcher. Oh, fuck. Sure. It's a Vile Feast target. Alright, Shard. What's up, Worthos? On the stream. A little unfortunate. Oh, they both have vulnerable. Decent curve. You can't stop that. Dealing 5 probably isn't good enough. I'm doing this so I can Black Spear. And then I set up Atrocity. Can I die to Battle Fury? He hooks the spider, goes to 13, 1 off. I see 7. He has to open Battle Fury. And then we block the other one with Gnosis. Get me out of here.